Welcome to YoshiBoo! Today we're taking a quick tour of the Elder Scrolls Online, a game that I've personally been looking forward to ever since Bethesda announced their plans to develop the game in May of 2012. I'm a huge Skyrim fan. My attitude at the beginning of beta testing was excited skepticism. It was my hope they'd make gameplay similar as much as they could. But I knew that this game would be an MMO and it would probably be a bit different. I figured that visually this game would look at least as good as Skyrim and hopefully better, and I was definitely not disappointed. One of the things that struck me right away was the quality of the graphics. The first thing to impress me was lighting effects, especially once you leave the Khajiit island that's called Khenarthi's Roost and you head over to the island of Iridian. That's what we're looking at right here. There's so many mountains and trees. Oh my goodness, I just love it. It makes me want to explore the dickens out of it. It's so beautiful. I think the ambient sounds are really awesome too as you explore. It's just layered so well that sometimes I didn't realize why a particular area's sounds were so awesome until I stopped and just listened for a moment. Sounds in Skyrim were great, but kind of repetitive in spots. For instance, if you were near a blacksmith, you'd hear the same pattern of a hammer on an anvil over and over and over and over and over, and it got kind of tedious and annoying. I feel like Elder Scrolls Online, they just took it to another level and took great care to not have a lot of repetitive sound patterns. If you stop and listen, you just don't hear repetitive noises, and I really like that. I really appreciate it. The maps of the world are really detailed and they're pretty easy to understand, but despite that, sometimes it looks like there's a route through a mountain range and it turns out to be a dead end. And then you have to backtrack, which is a lot like Skyrim. It's easy to think there's a viable route and then find out you just can't go that way. You have to turn around and go back. I'd say the way that the light filters through trees and fire effects, that they're just a lot more realistic than they were in Skyrim. And although, you know, it looked pretty good in Skyrim, I'd say they've made it just more realistic in this game. Fewer repetitive light flickers, things of that nature just make me want to be fully immersed in the game. It's those little touches that make it so awesome. It seems like there's more plant and foliage detail in ESO also, and there's just more plant life in general, which is really beautiful. I know Skyrim was supposed to be in the frozen north, but there were areas of grasses and trees and wildflowers. And while there was a lot of those things in Skyrim, it just seems more lush in ESO. To be fair, I've only been testing in Iridian, so I can't really speak for the other areas of Tamriel. And it could be that it's just more lush here because of the specific climate that I happen to be adventuring in. I'd say the stonework seems more detailed here as well. And I've mentioned before, I never thought that Skyrim looked bad. That's certainly not the case, but it's just more detailed here in Elder Scrolls Online. It just takes it to another level. I really, really appreciate the time and effort that the development team poured into this project to make it so aesthetically pleasing. Having that natural feel to it, the detail in the trees and the stonework and woodwork and realistic fire, it just completely immerses you and makes you want to see what's across the field or over the next bridge. In the next clip, we'll be looking at something a bit more dark, yeah, in the world. I was really impressed with the lighting effects on your environment here, so I took a pause just to look at it. The light and shadow is just amazing. How there's a torch lighting up your foreground and your character, and the fog in the distance is soft and wispy and not harsh on the edges, and the lightning, oh, look how it affects the landscape, how it filters through the tree branches. I just love it. The sounds are great too. Ooh, the dungeons. I do love me some dungeons. Some of my favorite quests in Skyrim were dungeon and underground areas, and it's the same thing for me here in Elder Scrolls Online. This looks so nasty. Ooh. And now we have the opposite of the last two clips where it was all dark and moody. And now we're in the early part of morning. And if I remember correctly, based on which town I think that I'm near in this clip, it's definitely morning, I think. Pretty sure. I think the water effects are awesome. The water is super clear. The detail is so wonderful. It looks like water and it moves like water. It's definitely a few cuts above Skyrim water, and the rocks nearby, well, they look like rocks. I really love the rock formations and the mountains in this section. They're just gorgeous. This is a beautiful sunrise, but they're using a lens flare effect. Some gamers are really turned off by that overuse of lens flare in games, and really that makes sense to me. If it's a first-person view and it's supposed to be my character's view, or how I would be viewing it, there wouldn't be any lens flare, but since I'm not looking through the lens of a camera, you know, why is that there? I do like how it looked, but it just seems a little bit out of place. Water in the moonlight looks pretty cool. Skyrim scenery made me want to explore, and so does the scenery here at ESO. And exploration is not only rewarded with beautiful views, but treasure, just like here. And here you can see the mechanics of lockpicking, which is really different than Skyrim. And right now, I haven't, done enough of this in the beta to know if I have an opinion in one way or the other, if I like Skyrim's method better or this method better. It's unrealistic because you can see the inside workings of this lock, but it still looks cool. So for right now, I'm middle of the road.
Diamonds? Rubies? This on them. Nothing but polished rocks.
I really love the
My
voice
soul
acting in this
gems
game.
are the only
It was good in
stones
Skyrim
you'll
too,
ever
but I
need.
think it's a little bit better here. There seems to be more variety in the voices used. The user interface in the skill tree menus, it's really easy to navigate. If you want to know more about a specific skill, all you have to do is hover your cursor over the skill to see a descriptive pop-up. It's pretty standard menu navigation, and it works really well. You'll have various perks available for your character depending on which class, race, and alliance you choose at the beginning of the game when you create your character. There's quite a bit to cover on this subject, and I may do a video in the future after the game is released to more fully explain what options are available and how that will affect your gameplay. There's also abilities and perks that are for specific guilds, which you can choose to become a part of or not become a part of throughout your progression of the game. Guild perks seem pretty useful so far. Something that I find really interesting, a perk that's available is now ultimate abilities, which are really powerful attacks that can be used after you fill up your finesse bar. And as you successfully defeat enemies in combat, that finesse bar fills up. Once it gets to the top, you can press your R key or whatever key you decide to map that ability to. And then you can use it to attack a horde of enemies that may be attacking you all at once. It's super effective and can get you out of a really tight spot. No surprise here, the more you use this ability and your other abilities, it will level up to an even stronger attack. Arr, a pirate ship. I'm just kidding. It's just a ship, but it's awesome. I do love the adult ship. Anyway, here's an example of a third-person view of combat. For me personally, I don't exclusively use third or first-person view in ESO, and I didn't in Skyrim either because for me it depends on the environment. If the fighting's in close quarters, I'll use a third-person view so I can have a wider field of view. Or if there's things like ledges or something that I can fall off during combat, then I definitely use a third-person view there as well. But I do like the first-person view a lot because it makes it way more immersive, like I'm really there in the middle of the action, or at least as there as I can be. Here's a bit more of the third-person view of combat. In this clip, I'm picking off some plague just outside of a town called Fair. And it's been hit with a mysterious plague that you have to investigate. Oh, these guys look pretty miserable. Lots of zombie-esque looking people roaming about and attacking passers-by. This gal I shoot in the left shoulder and her right shoulder bleeds, which I thought was kind of funny. Whatever, I'm not sure why that happened. I feel like, in general, the detail of faces and clothing on NPCs is pretty good, but as you're gonna see in a moment when I get close to this glitched NPC, I feel like the textiles just look a little bit flat. I don't know, it seems like it needs a little bit more depth and texture. Whoops, didn't mean to press my Windows button there. Okay, moving on. What was I looking for over here? I don't know why I went over there. Back to the combat. Time to engage more peasants in combat. Gosh, the voice acting for these plague peasants is hilarious. I think it's the female voices that are bothering me. Just listen to the male voices. They sound human, but they have a really feral sound to them. And it seems like the female voice acting is really lacking here. It sounds less like a feral animal and more like someone puking to me. Okay, I'm showing you this clip to give you a bit of a look into something that's kind of inconsistent that I noticed regarding ranged attacks from enemies. Take special note of the red field that appears when an enemy raises their bow to shoot a multi-arrow attack at me. When there's an obstacle in the way, like there is in this case, usually the arrow field doesn't extend beyond that obstacle, but here it actually does and flies into the room that I'm at. And it's really inconsistent. Sometimes an object will block those shots and sometimes they don't block the shot. Heading into a dungeon for a boss battle here against a character named Doshia, who's apparently a bit nasty, as I'm sure we're going to see in just a couple moments. I do love dungeons. I think that earlier in this video I mentioned that some of my favorite quests in Skyrim were in the darker places. It looks like in ESO it's going to be much the same for me. Looks like I have a few scoops to get through before I can make it to the main battle of this dungeon. Just get taken care of here. I feel like Shadow and Light are so well used everywhere in the game, and I think it really shows in dark dungeons. And those are taken care of. I'll just loot this scamp really quick here. Oh, something shiny. Nice crystal, but that's kind of an odd glow effect. Just had radiant lines coming out of it. Maybe they should have given it a pulsing glow effect or something. I think that would have looked better. If you're gonna make it glow, give it a proper glow like the other objects in the game. Dosha doesn't look too intimidating. I'll just cross over here. Maybe give her a few blasts from my staff. Blasty blasty. Backing up, try to avoid her attacks best that I can. And oh, now there's a skeleton after me. Run! Run from the skeleton! I'm not playing very well.
I will consume you as well.
Whoa! She's nasty now. And my gameplay sucks. Almost dead. Oh no. Oh, I'm dead. Ah! I didn't have any filled soul gems, so I can't spawn right here, but luckily if you're in a dungeon, you just spawn near the door. And that's good. Walking. Gotta get back down to Dosha and finish this. Earlier I forgot to assign health potions to my hotkey, so I'm doing that now. I could have saved myself the trouble of dying before, but oh well. Yeah, using this hotkey function is pretty easy. You just drag and drop your item into a slot, press Q to bring it up, and use your mouse to select the item once you're in battle. I have a little trouble with that though, which you'll see in a minute. And here we go. Something that bothers me about this game is the lack of accuracy when you're firing a ranged weapon at an enemy. When I play Skyrim, I've noticed that you have to be a bit more accurate, which actually appeals to me quite a bit because I like to zone in on that accuracy. I know that if there was such a finely honed accuracy in an MMO, there would be huge combat issues because of lag. You know, I understand why the mechanics are the way they are, but nonetheless, it still irritates me just a little bit. Personally, I don't have all that much experience with MMOs, and I'm really sure that it's showing in my gameplay here. This is actually pretty pitiful. It's not that I wasn't interested in getting into the MMO scene, because I really do enjoy them, but it was, I don't know, mainly just a lack of time, or perhaps more accurately my tendency to get lost in a game, and I felt that MMOs would take too big of a chunk of my time and attention that before now I couldn't afford to throw in that direction. And thankfully I'm in a place now where I can spare a bit of my time, and I'm really looking forward to getting immersed in the Elder Scrolls Online. This battle is taking way too long. I should have brought a buddy. I went with a third-person view again for this battle so that I could be on the lookout for other enemies that she conjures up. I'm almost dead, so there I pulled up my quick menu and hit my hotkey for the health potion. And it didn't seem to work. I didn't hear a sound, I didn't see a glow or anything, but luckily I've managed to avoid this baddie long enough that my health has increased a bit. I'm having trouble adjusting to accessing menus like that on the fly. In Skyrim, you know, the game paused when you go to use a potion or change the weapon or something like that, so it was almost like having a mini break as you gather your wits about you and head back into the fray, but maybe I just need to map that to another key. And here are a couple of funny clips to send you off. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Greetings. Hail. Hail.